All right, so I guess this is a discussion with Nadia. Okay, so let me bring Nadia over here to the Discord part, and we're talking about branding today. Specifically, we're talking about how we can use branding to help the. Duh, 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 duh. All right, we are. Okay, let's move you over to the screen now. Okay, specifically, we're talking about how to take knowledge from what business develop or the business intelligence team needs by looking at what partners are asking for and then thinking about how to then create the correct content for them to watch, right? So let's do this first. Let's think holistically about this problem. So I'm going to share my screen and let's have you take a look at this. Okay. So I'm thinking about this more holistically, which means that we're going to have to kind of introduce you to some new things that we're doing now. So the new thing we're doing now is this, Nadia. We're thinking about how to actually design a game around the user experience. So I suppose what's happening at this point is it's sort of like this, okay? So there is a product researcher, and this is why this conversation probably should be recorded because this needs to go over to tea time, okay? So the product researcher is collecting information about what is essential for us to create in terms of creating this game in order to affect change in partnership behavior. Okay, so on one side there's a game designer that then goes to a behavior change list. Okay, and on the other side there's a graphic artist that then creates the engagement tools and experience for the cards that we're going to design. And they're looking to, I guess, create this, answering this question: how will these actions encourage churn behavior? And then how will I represent this visually? So out of that comes a card design. And then from that, what we're building on the other side is a model. So we're trying to build a model for each user that we have. Essentially, it's like an AI avatar for each partner pro that we have. The engagement likelihood, or what is likely to be the engagement, whatever, likely to be the engaging outcome from this design. The point being, we can be much more intentional about how we create content and such. Okay, so let's try to imagine this in a workflow, shall we? So if, let's say, Bella's coming to you with a content request, let's speak about this in a way such that it makes sense. Okay, what do you think is the behavior that we're looking to adjust? What behavior are we looking to modify? Yeah. Hmm. Ah, okay. All right. That's a reasonable hypothesis at this point. Okay. So Bella, let me bring you also into this discussion because I think this is pretty important. Okay. Sorry, Nadia. I've just thought that this is a good point to bring in Bella because this is where you both can start cooperating to be more intentional about what we're trying to do. Okay. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to add you both into this bigger plan that we have for Thea. And you guys will have to know some of the design foundations of how we're building Thea in order to also, at this point, you don't need to integrate into Thea. You just need to kind of know what the intentions are so that your work is also intentional. Okay, I'll be more specific. Okay, so here's what we want. So Bella, you went to Nadia to seek a content request, right? To activate our partners and get them to sort of understand what's happening in the market, correct? Okay. Good, 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 good. Okay, so this is where we need to begin. Okay, so here's the architecture of what we're building here. Can you both see my screen? Okay, so what we're building for Thea eventually will look like this. Okay, so this is also why I'm recording this session, by the way. So this needs to go over to the product researcher, who's actually it's Titan at this point. What needs to happen is there needs to be some intention here, and it's mapped into two arcs. One is a behavior change, and the second is a sort of a graphic engagement. Okay, so the behavior change goes to a game designer, and the game designer thinks about, okay, what is it that we can actually do in order to create a, let's say, an experience for the user through the action feed that will get their behavior to change and encourage anti-churn behavior. And then to the graphic artist goes to how will they represent this particular action visually. Okay, so this feedback cycle is essentially what we're trying to build in order to improve and perfect our ability to engage and move behavior over towards where we have greater control. Okay, and over here we are also looking to build models for each of our partners such that we can their reaction and also what their internal conversations are to each of our engagement cards. Okay, so that's the kind of the long term big platform that we're designing to accommodate BBR, to accommodate different actions, to accommodate all these different ideas. Okay, so is that part clear? So Bella and Nadia, you both can kind of see it now, right? So if we're being intentional for this particular case, okay, we need to ask ourselves, what behavior do you really want to see change in the partner? Okay, and that comes to me. I'm the game designer at the moment. All right. So if Raquan's saying to you, like, he needs more aligned partners, okay, so what behavior do you want to actually see from partners? Because we need to kind of know if that behavior is actually happening. Okay, good. Okay, so one of the things that we need to probably do is that instead of asking us, they are somehow involved in the pricing process, right? Okay, so we need to kind of think of what's the game here such that we can serve them, such that number one, they don't ask us. Okay, so we're asking for a disengagement through asking questions. We're asking for a re-engagement in playing the cards. That's behavior number one. Okay, and then probably behavior number two is how can they learn the consequences of our decisions and their decisions. Okay, so we need to also ask questions later on. This is part of the game design. Okay, so you guys probably don't need to really learn this at this point, but this is my job right now. Okay, so I have to kind of think about, all right, instead of the person asking us, we want them to engage with the card, but instead of actually getting disappointed at us, we want them to be disappointed with their own decisions, perhaps. Okay, that might be a better. Okay, then it's self kind of learning, a self feedback system. Okay, so basically, it requires kind of a reframing of what the parameters might be. Okay, so instead of saying we're going to discount, we're going to say we're going to capitalize on an opportunity here. Right, there is less than this many days, and this is the contract value threat. This is the amount of time we're going to take, pipe up, and this is what Book of Vista will do. Right, and acknowledge and say thank you. Okay, something like that. Right, we won't even give them a choice, but we will ask them to We'll ask them to read it. We'll ask them to get through it. We'll ask them to somehow move through the cards, okay, so that they're participating in this process, okay. Okay. Anyways, I'll think about the game design for that. All right. So that will be kind of my task. So now, all right, now we have a place. Okay. Now we have an intention. We're getting the owner not to ask us questions. We're getting the owner to kind of move on their own to be whatever. So then, how do we want to create information for them? Okay. So we know sort of the limitations of a lot of the folk here. Okay. Do they watch videos? Do they watch our videos? No. We know we get views from somebody, but we don't know whether or not we get completed views from our actual community, right? Hmm. Good. That's a booyah. Yes, they watch because they're not problems. Okay, they're not our problems. All right. We're trying to change the behavior of the people who are constantly asking us, right? Are these the people asking about what's happening, or is this being asked by somebody else? Over to Bella. Okay, great, great, great. This is what we need to do. Okay, are you ready for this, Nadia? I know you're in Kalimantan right now, but okay. Scott Nicer? What's his name? I feel bad. Scott, the guy who designed games his whole life, right? Let me get his name so I quote him correctly. Scott was brilliant, by the way. Sometimes you talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about, and you don't need to go through too many. You don't need to have too long discussions. They'll get right to the point. So, what's his name? Okay, let me share this piece of information correctly. Okie dokie. What's his name? Scott. Okay, where is he? This guy. I want to always make sure I can source reference the right people. Scott Nisbet. Okay. So Scott Nisbet has been spending pretty much his entire life making games, some of which are hits back in the 90s. He hasn't created anything that legendary recently. But he said this, and it was obvious. I was like, as soon as I heard it, I was like, yeah, why don't we do that? You have to look at what your users are doing. Does that make sense? You can't just see. You have to actually bring them in. You have to see what they're doing, because if you don't see what they're doing, you really don't know what really happened, right? So not like you have to do this every day, but you do have to bring in people such that you can figure out, okay, why are they not actually opening that, right? And then you realize that their phone's broken, or you realize that some other stupid reason is actually inhibiting, or I don't know, whatever, right? It could be something really, really simple and basic, or there's incompatibility on their system, okay? But until we can actually see what is the behavior of the people who aren't behaving the way we expect in real life with their BVGO, until we see that, we can't really study behavior, okay? So we don't really know whether or not a video might even trigger the reaction we want, okay? So in that case, okay, you probably have to do something first, right? You have to, number one, ask, are they even opening BVGO? Okay, so let's go back to Bella. Bella, for these people who are asking what's going on, okay? Do they have a high BVGO engagement or a low BVGO engagement? Okay, good. Good. Okay, good. Okay, good. All right, so we've resolved that. They have a high BVGO engagement. Okay, good. So then we just have one critical moment here, okay? Ready, Nadia? This is it, okay? This is where you get them. That's it, okay? So this is as important as building a great YouTube cover. This is it. So if this isn't right, then they are not going to watch, or they're not going to understand, or they're not even going to engage, okay? But remember this, okay? Remember this. After they watch, what do you want them to do? Do you want them to participate in a game? Do you want to challenge them with comments? Do you want to offer a reward for whoever understands? Do you want to, whatever it is, okay? So remember, it kind of has to be fun, and it has to simulate some sort of participation, okay? So you might say, all right, first 10 people to comment get a whatever it is, okay? Some sort of gift, some sort of incentive, all right? First 3 people to do whatever. So we have to think, or I have to think, okay? Let's just say you delegate back to me what the game mechanic should be, okay? And that way you know that they've watched it. Does that make sense? If you don't create a loop whereby there's a reason to watch it and there's a reason to then experience whatever, okay, maybe no whatever, right? It could be as simple as help your own ranking boost, okay, by watching this. And after you watch it, you get a point increase on your ranking that then goes into your owner-manager relationship score, okay? That could be as simple as that, all right? That would then start getting the ownership back, okay? They'll be like, yeah, I want to be in a good relationship with the manager with this. So to watch the video that we gave you, right? Stop neglecting to do your homework. Okay, all right, so now we have a more complete mechanism. You see, guys? Okay, so anyways, I'm just letting you know what we plan on doing, because we can't just keep on sending these things out and going, who cares if anybody watches them? There should be some sort of feedback loop, okay? And it can be as simply as soon as you completed it, just comment so we know that you've watched it, and you'll get a boost on your points, right? And every boost on your points is ultimately something that will, I think it's true. It's like, it's a little bit like making an offering or doing a chanang. It's like, that's what builds your your capitalist karma, so to speak, right? You start getting better and better, understanding how to speak and engage in a more, more educated owner way. So that's probably the process, all right? Maybe we can put that too, owner XP, yeah? Like the owner experience, how much XP apparently is the thing in Duolingo. I just learned about it myself, right? So experience, right? Have you guys used Duolingo? No? Yes? Okay. Yeah, so whenever you get more experience, you get these XP points. Um, I used to think about why, and then I realized that, yeah, it's probably the right metric. The more you're logging experience, the more people feel like I'm getting better at this, right? Okay, anyway, long story short, that's kind of it. Okay, so basically, here's let's be intentional now. Okay, let's try to fit all the pieces together. So what we want to do is we want owners to feel, instead of dread, instead of disappointment, we want them to feel delight that they have an opportunity, that we're adjusting prices in order to preserve some other thing, right? Let's say we're trying to preserve contract value, okay? So we need to set a narrative such that, once again, I think your idea in the beginning was good, Nadia. There's an antagonist somewhere. It's Thailand. It's Phuquoc. It's somewhere else, okay? And that is, hurting business here, okay? So we are hoping to respond to that. And what's going to need to happen is we're going to need to work together as a team to get everyone back here on this place again. So we're going to trade off some of this whatever for the other thing. Okay, so I'll think about what the mechanic can be, okay? But that ultimately is a complete narrative, okay? And you can see the headline that, right? Is Phuquoc and Vietnam stealing business away from you today? Click this video and find out. Okay? Why is it so quiet in Bali? Is everyone going to Vietnam? Okay? And you can just research whatever, kind of mild research you've done on that. It's mainly just a set narrative, okay? So now everyone's like, oh, okay, it's not that, you're not doing anything. It's that this is this, right? And break it into small chunks that I can see. Okay, so you guys get it now, right? That's how I would go through the process of creating a behavioral change. All right. Now, I'm not a game designer, so I'm learning how to do this through ChatGPT. Okay. I know kind of like where the direction is, and I'm trying to figure out how to get there. But I just thought I'd bring you guys along so that we can work together as a team. Okay. So that's the idea. How can we make these cards more compelling for somebody to click on, more compelling for them to understanding, and more kind of like also, oh, okay, that's what's happening, and we need to take action. Okay, so okay, all right, that's where I would see mastery of brand coming into. Okay, mastery of being able to always generate another. This is pretty much how marketing works and propaganda works, right, Nadia? So always generate another story, generate other reason for people to keep their bets with us. Okay. Did you guys ever watch that Wolf of Wall Street passage? Okay, here. Let's have a collective moment here, yeah. So, okay, I think that's okay. You guys ever see this part? Never seen this? Oh, okay. Nadia, what about you? Oh, you need to see this. Okay, we'll watch this together. This is important. This I think is pretty critical. Yeah. Um, Okay, so that's, I mean, satire, of course. Okay, hopefully that made sense, right? That's a bit of satire, but ultimately, when people churn, it's because they didn't reinvest in us, right? They didn't think that we were able to understand what was going to happen next. So they think that they're better off taking their own chances and figuring out what to do themselves, okay? So part of this is Bella delivering the actual goods, right? Making sure that we hit the target. But as you both know, oftentimes we hit targets and people still leave, right? So my understanding of it is that they generally believe that they know better or they have their options there. So oftentimes it's just communication, right? We already know something here. We're just not communicating it to the overall audience in a way that they can understand, okay? Not everyone speaks linear regression and I don't know, artificial intelligence, whatever we talk about here. Okay, so oftentimes we just need to think about what's the emotional impact to actually convey, and then they understand what to do. Basically, learning that the higher order is not just to tell people and leave it up to them. It's to lead. Okay, and so leading means okay, you try to think of them as the player, and you need them to move over to this spot. Okay, and the unskilled person would say move over to this spot. The more skilled person would say here, 20 points lost in 15 seconds if you remain in the same position. You see, it's a bit different, and it creates, let's say, some motion too. Okay, so that's essentially the beginnings of this game design. Now, thank you guys for both coming here. Now that's one less meeting I will need to have with Titan, hopefully. Okay, you can kind of now review this and also understand you both are on board, and hopefully this also condenses and makes the communication more flawless across the organization. Okay, any questions? Any sort of ideas about what we're meant to do? Once this is in full automation, I hope, because it's pretty good brand. Everyone just said, "Oh yeah, with Book of Vista, there's something interesting." I always feel really engaged in what's going on. Super simple. Super simple. Just say, "Is Bali empty, and where are travelers going? Here's what we have figured out," right? And then just report on that, and just use some B-roll to show, I don't know, Quack going up, and like Google Trends, all these things, and a few visuals, okay, and maybe some reviews. It's mostly just to give them the sensation that there's an antagonist somewhere else. And by the way, I've heard that too. Here, I've heard that all the way in San Francisco. People saying, "Yeah, well, he's overrated. Let's go to somewhere new." Yeah. So apparently, I guess that is flowing. It's kind of crazy how quickly these kind of things spread globally. I suppose everyone's probably attached to the same few sources too. So yeah, that's probably it. Whether it's true or not doesn't make any difference. What makes a difference is we need to move to a different price point. Okay, so we cannot sustain these current things if we're going to undersell. So that's it. Okay, that's pretty much the. Okay, all right, Nadia. Always make sure there's an antagonist and that we're the protagonist, and let the audience understand that we're moving them, or we're going to try to get them to also. Oh, let me think about that later. I have to figure out in the game design. But always make sure there's an antagonist and it's not us, okay? That's probably number one. Just move the antagonist to somewhere else, and then we're doing what we can, but it's the Vietnamese that are taking away your guests, okay? That works a lot better than anything else. Okay, all right. I'll leave you guys to it. See ya. Thank you. Okay.